Okay, it looks like we're live. All right. So, a little while back, Thought Slime here on the YouTube did him a talk about Roko's basilisk. Link in the down there. That not too important. Roko's basilisk is a thought experiment. It's absolutely asinine. All it really demonstrates is that some people are willing to get right up their own ass about the most ridiculous bullshit. Okay? Nothing really there. It's just crap, stupid thought experiment. He spent a lot of the video having a go at Eliezer Yudkowsky, the guy whose blog the thought experiment first showed up on. I mean, kind of fair enough. Eliezer Yudkowsky, as I vaguely recall, is kind of a weird dude. All I know about him is I think he was on a panel at one of the early Skepticons, conference organized by the Secular Student Alliance. As I recall, he's a transhumanist. He thinks he'll one day merge with machines. He thinks there'll be a singularity. We'll all live forever in the cloud as a beautiful utopia. And he's scared of dying, so he signed up to get his head cryogenically frozen in case he dies before we all get to live forever as machines. Whatever. Okay, I mean, he's not insane. He's not necessarily wrong. He's just kind of out there, right? I haven't done a deep dive on Yudkowsky, so I don't really know. Maybe Thought Slime did a deeper dive, and he really does deserve to get, smacked around a bit. But there was one point where Thought Slime was talking about a book, a sci-fi book that Yudkowsky had written. He wanted to illustrate something about human morality. And so he looked at, he proposed that humans encounter an alien species that has developed the morality that the most moral thing you can do is eat your own children. And Thought Slime sort of pushed back against the idea that morality that it comes from biology. Can't remember. He just sort of indicated that he thought that was a weird take, that Yudkowsky was wrong about that. And I disagree. Morality does come from biology. Okay, I mean, my initial response was, wait, no, that's the eating your own babies thing is stupid. Absolute no, can't possibly work. But I actually talked myself around on that one. I haven't read the book, so I don't know how Yudkowsky tried to justify it. But I want to talk about morality a little bit. First, that means I'm going to have to insult the good place just a little bit. Not really the good place, Chidi. I'm going to have to insult Chidi.
Why don't you just tell me the right answer?
Well, that's what's so great about the trolley problem is that there is no right answer.
This is why everyone hates moral philosophy professors.
I'm on your
Okay. The Good Place, absolutely wonderful show. Everybody should watch it. Moral philosophy. The trolley problem. It started back in the 60s. It's sort of an exercise in trying to understand human morality, right? And for a long time, for about 35 years actually, that's all it was. It was an exercise in moral philosophy where they would go through and they would try to come up with these more and more and more tortured situations. Okay, so the trolley problem, the basic version, as presented in the show correctly, is that you have a runaway trolley, can't be stopped. It's going to plow through 5 people. But you, happy, lucky you, are standing by a lever. You can switch the trolley onto a different track where it will only kill 1 person. What do you do? The trolley problem hits a lot of people really, really hard. And it's supposed to. Because that is what it's for. It's trying to put different moral emotions into conflict. So about 20 years ago, like I said, 35 years after the trolley problem was first, presented really, or maybe 25 years. That depends on how you count it. Anyway, moral psychologists got their hands on it. Psychological researchers, research psychologists got their hands on it. And they started trying to use the trolley problem and its variants to explore how people actually feel. And so what the trolley problem does is it puts different moral emotions into conflict. And this is why I want to criticize Chidi, because he's a bad teacher. Okay, he just says there is no right answer. The beauty of the trolley problem is that we're trying to make it so that there is no right answer. We're deliberately engineering situations to put those emotions into conflict so that there can be no right answer. Just word of caution, if you look up the trolley problem and so on, you will find that it can be very upsetting the way that it is sometimes formulated because of the way they engineer it. They are trying to be upsetting. Because the idea is, essentially, these research psychologists, they were doing good evo-psych. Evolutionary psychology is the idea that things evolve if there's any sort of selective pressure. If anything is biologically based at all, there can be selective pressure for or against it. So if you can find something that is a universal behavior among humans, a behavior that's universal, then you can reasonably assume that there was some evolutionary pressure that selected for that behavior. Okay. Bad evo-psych, they don't bother to prove that anything's even universal. They just make up stories to justify misogyny and homophobia. Gad said, cough, cough. But good evo-psych, they actually do demonstrate first that these things are universal. And then they try to find out ways to test whether or not they might be evolved. Okay. So when it comes to morality, the trolley problem is great for that. Because you can put different values into conflict by constructing, not necessarily trolleys, but you can find different ways to construct scenarios to put values into conflict. And what we found is that the frippery, the bullshit, the things that people outside, there's a lot of stuff that's just cultural. It's temporary and it's local, right? Wearing your hair a certain way, having to wear a kind of hat, crushing people's feet, right? These are not universal. You construct a trolley problem to put, one of those local temporary things in conflict with, say, rescuing a baby, and they'll say, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I'm going to lose my funny hat. Okay, whatever. Most people. I'll make up for it later, saving the baby is more important. And they've found, however, that there are certain moral emotions that are genuinely universal. I mean, they've even, recently contacted tribes in the Amazon or on distant Pacific islands. They present, variations. They obviously set them up to context that they would understand, Deep in the Amazon, you wouldn't understand a runaway train, but you would understand, say, a stream, alligators. You can throw a log in, something, I don't know. And they found that there are some morals that are universal across humanity. And when you have a situation like that, you can reasonably conclude that they do have a biological basis. It's not an accident that people grow up and all happen to have these same fundamental moral values. Now, the religious nuts would say, oh yes, that's because God put them there. But when you look at them, you don't need God to explain them. You can see that they serve a certain set of purposes. Like for the trolley problem specifically, what they could use that to determine is, first up, you find it leads to the golden rule. Okay, don't hurt the other guy. And also, be fair. Don't cheat the other guy. So, do to him what you want him to do to you, but also do to him what he would want you to do. Okay, don't be a jerk, right? They say be fair, don't hurt people. Respect your elders. Respect authority is kind of a thing. Learn from people who have something to teach you. Also, be loyal to your group, not just kin, but your community. Right? So don't betray them even when they're out of sight, kind of thing. What this is doing is this is encouraging pro-social behavior. We are a cooperative species. Even more than other mammals, our young are incredibly helpless. We need to cooperate to survive. And of course, we're also weak and blind and deaf compared to other animals. We absolutely need cooperation. So yeah, morality is evolved. And it's not just those things. The original trolley problem, the emotions it puts into conflict are, the simple cold hard math. Like everyone has that. Fish have that. Do I go after this fish over here? Do I go after this food over here or this food over here? How hungry am I? How much energy will it take to get it? What will I get out of it? That sort of thing. Cold hard math is everywhere. And that's being put into conflict with the moral emotion of don't hurt people. We don't want people to get hurt, even hypothetically. Like I said, the trolley problem causes people like severe emotional distress. People lose sleep over this shit. Just hypotheticals. So, yeah, and it's not just that. Like the Westermark effect. Again, a strong moral emotion. I don't know if you could almost certainly put that into terms of a trolley problem, but most people would have trouble with it. The Westermark effect is people don't see people they grew up with, that they see grow up from a very young age, as viable sexual partners. This encourages outbreeding, exogamy. It discourages incest. Okay, the incest taboo is very deeply seated. Okay. We see biological origins for all of this stuff. Some of them are very simple, or relatively simple, like the Westermark effect. Some of them require understanding prosocial behavior, which some nerd bros might have trouble with. But I mean, thoughts, Lance Akabe, you would think they'd understand that a bit more. But yeah, so going back to Yudkowsky's Aliens. I mean, the reason I had trouble with it is there is absolutely no way you could have a biologically derived drive to devour your own offspring. Okay, any gene that drove you to devour your own offspring would eliminate itself, right? Because you would be devouring people who carried the gene. Right? But I could see a scenario where that could happen. Like I said, I haven't read Yudkowsky's book, but humans, or what are called K-type reproducers, we care for young. We have a very small number of children that we put a lot of energy into so that almost all of them survive to adulthood. Alternatively, there are N-type reproducers that they just shotgun it. they have a lot of kids, and they put like no energy into raising them. Their energy goes into having lots and lots of children rather than having a small number of children. Only a few of those very large number of children will survive, but they'll still have roughly the same number of children survive. So imagine you end up with an N-type species that manages to make it to our level of civilization. They have transportation, assume they're a social species, but are also N-type reproducers. Okay, social clams, or trees that can talk. They communicate. They have civilization, society, culture, art. They have mastered technology. They developed technology. They've started curing diseases. Their population is starting to rise because, oh no, more of their children are surviving into adulthood. That's a problem. They will quickly overwhelm their environment. And the solution is easy. You kill off a lot of your children. Now, we think that's horrifying because as K-type reproducers, it is, hardwired into us that we have to take care of children. Even hypothetical babies really get our guts going. But these guys are N-type reproducers. They look at our attachment to our children and they think that's incredibly maudlin and creepy and weird. Just let them run free, man. If they die, they die. They'll survive. Some of them at least, right? So they don't have a problem, really, with the idea of killing lots and lots of their offspring. They see it as necessary in order to ensure their own survival, and they're perfectly okay with that. Maybe they set up a whole, like, Heinleinian version of communism sort of system, to decide who gets to survive and who doesn't. Or maybe they just, do it randomly, shotgun it. So I can see how you could get an intelligent, social, spacefaring species that would see killing children as a necessity. But I don't think they would be unreasonable about it. They'd say, "Oh, you don't produce a huge number of children. Oh, I see. You're okay. You're like the sea dogs from where we come from, or what have you." So, I mean, they're reasonable. That's one of the problems with a lot of sci-fi, is that they don't actually produce alien species with alien moralities derived from alien biology. It's mostly just people in funny hats, right? Or something that's completely incomprehensible. Like, I think there was a thing, Philosophers in Space did a thing, but even about intelligent spiders, even then, I think it does seem a lot more like people in hats. They just made it a matriarchal society. But I think there are hints. I haven't read that series of books. It was a little bit more alien. I mean, I think it'd be interesting, have intelligent ants. Okay, an intelligent insect species like ants, colony species. Not Heinlein style. He didn't know fuck all about insects or communism. Because, I mean, think about it. Imagine a species, pro-social, heavily pro-social, um, where you have different classes that are literally bred for their jobs. I mean, to us, that seems kind of like a horrifying caste system where people don't have a choice. Yeah, but they're like, no, I am perfectly free to act however I wish. I love my colony, my clan, my family. I do this, and this is the job I was bred for. It's perfect for me. It's wonderful. I love it, right? They would look at us and see us as weirdly redundant. You all are exactly the same, and you're doing all the same stuff. How do you specialize? And weirdly individual. Wait, you don't always act for family? I mean, I can imagine an ant species encountering us and learning about the idea that we have a word for selfishness and being horrified, and being further horrified to learn that it doesn't mean dangerously insane. I mean, there's a lot of ways. It's just that I think like sci-fi aliens would be better and more interesting if they were genuinely alien. I can understand that there are a lot of limits on that because the actors are human, and until recently, we didn't have the CGI that would be capable of rendering, letting humans do non-human acting. But even so, we also have the problem that it's difficult to do that sort of writing. Anyway, what I really wanted to say was I think Thought Slime was wrong. Morality is based on biology. Not the silly things like pink is for boys and blue is for children. Oh, that's a century old culture. I'm talking about the deep stuff, the stuff that people will die for, like universally die for. And that is one of the great things about the trolley problem, is that it's a great tool for analyzing whether something is a really strongly held, like hardwired in moral emotion, or just a funny hat. All right, with that, I think I'll stop rambling at you. I'm going to head to the grocery store. Wesley needs dog food. Thanks for stopping by.